Hey, it's Sunday, September 15th, and this is a quick slay episode of
Slayers of Boredom Podcast.
Well, this is weird, right? Just me. Sean and I haven't seen much of each other lately. We actually saw each other at a local show for a band that I'm sure I've talked about many times called Yam Yam. And great local band, by the way. Check them out if you get a chance. Saw a lot of good people there that night, and we were sort of lamenting over the fact that we haven't had a lot of time due to, kids and work, all the same bullshit that we always say we don't have time to do podcasts for. Obviously, there's been no shortage of material to go over. So Sean had the idea of, well, hey, let's try and at least keep putting out some, some little short casts or something. And we were texting back and forth yesterday, and I was like, I can't think of what to call these things. And I was calling them short clips, and he's like, just call them quick slays. And I was like, all right, I guess that could be construed as some kind of sexual weirdness too, like a quick slay, a quickie with your girl or guy or whatever you're into. But hey, I guess if that's what we're going to, just some quick little stimulation for your brain. I'm going to talk about a few things here that I had researched a little bit last week. Obviously, like I said, there's no shortage of fun things to talk about in the country and the world right now. As far as media goes, I know we like to talk about some of the things, movies we've watched, things we've listened to recently. As far as me, there's not really much going on with my band. We're just writing a new album. I haven't really done much. I discovered a new podcast called Behind the Bastards, which is led by a man named Robert Evans, brilliant guy. He'll read, he'll take like a week and read a whole bunch of books on a topic and then write out a whole script. And their whole shtick is basically he does exposés on some of the worst people that really humanity has to offer. Generally, they're in positions of power and stuff like that. So recently, I heard like the six episode series on Henry Kissinger, who we've talked about a few times. I also just wrapped up the one on Vince McMahon. It's very bleak once you start to see the dark side of a lot of these people. But they do a great job with throwing humor into it, so you can kind of, I guess, I don't want to laugh at the horrible things these people have done, but I guess the way they sort of make fun of them for being just epic pieces of shit sort of, I guess, makes up for a little bit of it. So I was listening to some of that. I saw Mad Max Furiosa, great film. I thought that was good. Quiet Place Day One was crap. Again, like these aren't like really enthralling movies that make you think or anything like that. But visually, Furiosa was great. Great film. I haven't seen Beetlejuice. I haven't seen Deadpool. I don't really go to the movies and stuff like that. That's pretty much it for media. I know I probably mentioned Slow Horses before. Season 4 just started that on Apple TV. I haven't been able to get around to it yet, but I will eventually. Okay, so I'm going to talk about two things, one of which is related to Harrisburg. The other is kind of just related to what's going on in the alt-right incel community. And then I'm going to wrap up with last week's debate and some talking points about that and what I think Harris and Walz need to continue to do if they want to beat Trump. And yes, I will also talk about how we're stuck in this political duality where, again, it seems like another instance of choosing between the lesser of two evils. Real quick, I'll say I think Tim Walz, ostensibly, at least on the surface, seems to be a great guy. He's a politician that doesn't have any investments in the stock market. He basically, his retirement's from his pension as a teacher and stuff, and I can respect that a lot. But I absolutely understand that Harris is still part of the Biden administration, and they are in support of AIPAC, and yes, they are continuing to give weapons to the IDF as they commit their genocide and horrible murders against the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. So that's not lost on me. I want you to understand that before I get to that point. It's certainly not lost on Sean, but I'm still going to explain why in the here and now, the present moment, why they still have to beat Trump. And I understand why you don't want to vote for them. And I understand if you might hate me for trying to make a case for why you should in this here and now moment. And we will get to that. Firstly, I want to start with the news about Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, and some other conservative talking heads and personalities that you'll find all over the internet. Unfortunately, these ghouls have a lot of influence and a lot of viewers of their content. They spread a lot of right-wing hate, a lot of lies, a lot of white nationalist shit. Like Tim Pool especially, he's another one of my fellows. I don't agree with any of the shit this guy says, but he is another guy who likes to wear hats because he's going bald. He's much balder than I am though, which is funny, and he hates that. He's got a penis head, and oh man, drives him nuts when people make fun of him. Anyways, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, some others. We're part of a media group based out of Nashville, Tennessee called Tenet, okay? And it's co-owned by another conservative pundit named Lauren Chen. The DOJ is alleging that RT, which stands for Russia Today, through a couple Russian PSYOP citizens that they have over there, have been funding Tenet Media. So when you think about it, I mean, the DOJ alleges that Tim Pool and these others had no knowledge that they were being funded by a Russian entity for this PSYOP. I obviously, I'm not versed enough on the investigation to know whether that's true or not, but either way, they're Russian stooges, right? They're being funded and spewing out basically Russian propaganda. I do know there is some evidence of some scripts that were either approved or supplied to them for parts of their shows. So Russian money, Russian anti-democratic propaganda. These dudes are stooges. And it's just hilarious. I mean, especially when you look back to 2016 and everybody claims it's like there wasn't Russian influence in our elections through Facebook, through YouTube, Reddit, like wherever you can find these Russian bots. And there was a Russian bot farm, I mean, still is, that basically their entire job is to sow disinformation and misinformation in our country in hopes of, using the same word again, sowing this democratic type of belief system and structure. So these, trad-loving incels just looked like complete fools, and they were getting tons of money. I think one of them they were getting like $400,000 a month plus like $100,000 sign-on bonus for airing certain types of Russian propaganda through no knowledge of their own, apparently. But these guys are total stooges, and I just think that's absolutely hilarious. So again, clearly a foreign entity, which is generally our country's enemy, has been fueling right-wing propaganda using American alt-right incel personalities in our country. And they have reached millions of people in the United States. And that scares the shit out of me because it's all bullshit. It's all white nationalist incel bullshit. And they're being funded by a Russian organization. Can't freaking believe it. So some people are going to go to jail for this, hopefully. It doesn't seem like any of these personalities will, but whatever. At least they look like idiots, and I guess that's the best we can hope for nowadays. For some local news for any of our Harrisburg listeners, which I guess is probably the majority of our group of listeners, I'm sure you're well aware that there was another group of infamous incels parading around the streets of Harrisburg, a group of Nazis who I guess I can assume they all showed up in some stinky, sweaty U-Haul van before they unloaded on the streets of our city. And, started doing their stupid march, covering their faces because they're cowards and stuff like that. Probably don't want to lose their jobs and shit. I just thought it interesting. I mean, you can take from it what you will. They're a bunch of idiots. Like, my whole thing is like, okay, yeah, great, whoop-de-doo, just ignore them. You don't give them the attention that they want. And they don't really accomplish whatever bullshit mission that they have. But I thought it was interesting that a local journalist of ours interviewed a bunch of politicians, representatives, either, I guess, at the federal and the state level for Pennsylvania. And most of them, they had their speechwriters or whoever write up, the right talking points. They all had the right things to say about it. Scott Perry, on the other hand, if you're familiar with Scott Perry, he's been getting rich in the political system for like 30 some years and not really doing much. He's one of the people that tried to disenfranchise millions of Pennsylvanians in the 2020 election. Part of the Freedom Caucus, dude has tea with fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene. COVID deniers, won't wear a mask, thought the insurrection was hilarious, all that stuff. The guy's just a total dick. And real quick, if you know Janelle Stelson, I believe that's how you say her name, she is a local journalist. You would recognize her. I mean, she's been all over local news in this area for years now. She's running against him, and she has a real advantage over the fact that she's a recognized personality. People know her. She's got decent funding behind her, and this might honestly be the closest chance we've had to getting rid of Scott Perry in a long time. So I implore you to look up Janelle Stelson. If you're not a Scott Perry fan, please give her your vote, because we got to get that asshole out of there. He is a terrible person. And me having 2 kids, I know that he wants to do away with the Department of Education. And again, that paves the way for charter schools and stuff like that, where basically you can get tax vouchers to pay for your child to go to a school. But these charter schools, in a lot of instances, I mean, not all of them, in a lot of instances can teach whatever curriculum they want. So, I mean, you want to talk about bullshit like, oh, like they're changing the genders of our children in schools and stuff like that, which is just complete bullshit. This is a real danger with some of these charter schools, though, because they will indoctrinate your child. They will not teach them the right facts about history. A lot of it will be religiously influenced, a lot of these schools, especially down south. And if you ask me, I'm a product of the public education system. I know most of my friends are. It's a good thing to have, and these are important institutions in our country that should not be corrupted, should not be for sale, and should be focusing on truthful, fact-based, and scientific education for our children moving forward. That is my opinion. I know Scott Perry wants to do away with that type of stuff, and just like in the Reagan years, I believe it was Reagan's Secretary of Education that said that you don't want to have a populace that is well educated. You don't want them all to be college educated. Because why? Because then you have knowledge within the people, and those at the top lose their power. So again, it's just another ploy to control things in a very strange trad way. Scott Perry is definitely a trad. If you don't know a trad, it's basically short for traditional, like these weirdos out there that think that, like things should go back to like have more of a biblical sense, you know what I mean? Like the wife is just there to take care of the kids and cook, and the man is the only one bringing in the income, It's like, it's basically like gender roles within the family, just weird shit, you know what I mean? And my God, women need to be in control. They don't need to be at home taking care of kids and cooking dinner all the time. Like, we need women in positions of power, more than anything. Men are bellicose, they're violent, they're unstable. Oh, gosh. Anyways, that was my little tidbit on Scott Perry, but I sort of got sidetracked a little bit, but his quote to the journalist who asked him about these Nazis, right? This is unfucking believable. This is a direct quote from Scott Perry. Quote, I have long been a vocal critic of and vehemently opposed to the views and actions of the radical left's National Socialist Party, aka Nazis. And then he goes on to acknowledge their First Amendment rights and stuff. But, only Scott Perry can turn this around to, let's not forget the Tiki Torch assholes in Charlottesville saying Jews will not replace us. They were a bunch of freaking Nazis and stuff. And that certainly wasn't left-wing socialists, okay? That was the alt-right lunatics that, coming from the different fringes of the MAGA world and whatnot. And that's exactly what these Nazis were. Scott Perry trying to spin it into something that it's not. Typical Scott Perry politics, man. It's just, again, it's just another psyop. Convince people of something that isn't true, that benefits your agenda. And that's what that guy's known for. Just total piece of shit. Let's vote him out. Janelle Stelson. Okay, so, lastly here, before I start, I understand the want to vote for anyone in this election, right? They say the only power that you have, is at the voting booth every 2 years and every 4 years and stuff. But politics is every day. I can't remember the man who said that. He's just a great activist, political activist. My friend actually just posted that quote that I just said from him recently. But politics is every day. So, again, this is, with the amount of time that Sean and I have between work and kids and stuff, this is the best way that we can try and get our opinions and some information out to people to try and sway them in a direction that we feel is more progressive and more conducive to a society that we live in where people have an equal playing field and, there's love and peace and community. This is the best that we can do, so we're doing this podcast. So it may feel like most of what anybody can do is just vote at the ballot box and that's it. I understand wanting to forfeit that for this particular election. I understand that it's just been a bunch of the same bullshit talking points like, oh, we need a ceasefire in Gaza and that's what we're fighting for and blah, blah, blah. While meanwhile, Raytheon and Lockheed are like pulling in record profits and AIPAC is like funding politicians to run against others that stand against the genocide going on. I understand not wanting to vote for Harris as a result of that. And I hope that you know that voting for Trump would be 10 times worse. I mean, there's nothing to suggest that Trump would make the situation in Gaza any better because he wouldn't. I mean, he moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And anybody who knows anything about religion or that region knows that Jerusalem has kind of been like an unspoken neutral site for, Christians, Muslims, Jews. It's a holy land. It wasn't to be recognized as, the capital of any state over there. So Trump is in league with Netanyahu. I mean, Netanyahu is just a smarter, more military. I don't want to say more military trained because Trump has no military experience at all. But Netanyahu is just he is another autocrat like Trump, only he's much smarter. And the reason why he's staying in power right now is because when he's out, he's going to jail, and people know that. His citizens certainly know that, and a lot of people in Israel are against his war in Gaza as well. They just want the hostages home and for a ceasefire and all of that stuff to end. It sickens me that the Biden administration continues to allow these weapons to flow to the IDF. It sickens me that we allowed Netanyahu to come to our fucking country and speak to Congress. I mean, the dude is a war criminal, and we've said it before, every president we've ever had is a war criminal. I don't necessarily expect Harris to do much to change that. I hope that she would. I think it is in her best interest to do so. But will she? Probably not. However, in the here and now, in this system of political duality, we have Harris or we have Trump. And I implore you, I ask you, if you aren't going to vote for Harris, are you okay with Trump winning? I mean, do you think that things are going to be better you have the ancillary subject, you have abortion, you have immigration. People have already made up their minds on that. Most people know they're either going to vote for Trump, they're going to vote for Harris, or they're not going to vote at all, and they're on the fence. The people that are on the fence or don't want to vote, you have two different sections of them, in my opinion. You have the ones who are going to determine on their own which president they think is going to put more money in their pockets over the next 4 years, or you have the ones that don't want to vote because of their morality, and I get that. Like, you don't want to put Harris in there, who has been helping Biden fund the IDF, and Trump, who did the exact same thing. I mean, it's the lesser of two evils again, right? However, we've seen everything that Trump has to offer on the surface. We've seen him since 2016. We shouldn't expect him to be any different. Okay, now that I said that, I just want to go over some of the 5 hilarious and dumbest talking points and quotes from the debate, and what I think Harris needs to do to keep her momentum to defeat him in November. And from there, that's when we can start thinking about how we can try and change things. And I know it sounds like a broken record. It's like, oh, we were going to change things with Obama. And no, he had 10,000 different droning operations that killed all kinds of people all throughout the Middle East. I mean, like Bush, freaking 20 years of war, trillions of dollars, right? I understand, having a pessimistic attitude and thinking that not many things are going to change. I get it. But like Robert Evans said, who I was speaking about earlier, he said, again, like I said, he doesn't expect Harris and Walz to create any type of significant change, but they will be the nail in the coffin of MAGA, at least in the Trump era, okay? Another 4 years of just shutting these people up and not having a dictator in there who's going to implement certain facets of Project 2025. Whatever you want to believe, like all the extremes of it or not, I guarantee you that some of those plans will be implemented, especially doing away with the Department of Education, reducing the corporate tax rate from whatever it is now, something in the 20% down to I think he wanted 13%. All those things that are terrible for our country and good for billionaires like Donald Trump and their ilk, okay? Not the middle class. So before I get into these quotes, I'll just jump ahead to what I think Harris needs to do. Like I said, people have already made up their minds on the abortion issues, on the immigration issues. Harris needs to hammer home for the next 50-some days a clear-cut economic plan about how she's going to put more money into middle-class pockets, how she's going to build up the middle class again, because that is the majority of our country. I don't even like saying middle class, because classism and the class structure in this country disgust me just as much as, it's just another product of our unregulated capitalism, right? There's no reason anybody in this country should be homeless or struggling to eat food or struggling to put a roof over their head or clothes on their kids or anything. There's no reason for that in this country. And that happens because we have allowed such a disparate wealth gap to continue to grow since Reagan and trickle-down economics. So she has to be the one to change that, and she has to have that clear-cut message, okay? Again, raising the corporate tax rate. I know she said that she wants to tax people that make $100 million or more on unrealized gains. So you guys making $40,000, $50,000 a year shilling for your freaking these corporate CEOs and stuff and these billionaires, like, that's not going to affect you, okay? And trust me, they're not your fucking friends. They don't give a shit about you. You are a consumer to them. They want your money, okay? They're going to trade stocks with their cronies. They're not going to sell their stocks. That's how they basically pay for things, so they don't have to have realized gains be taxed. That's why Harris wants to tax the unrealized gains. If you have over $100 million, the stocks you hold are going to be taxed, and that is what should happen, okay? These people can be taxed to hell and still walk away billionaires, still live their comfortable lives. And that money that we take from them through taxes, and I will say take, because fuck you, we're going to take it, and it needs to happen, can go to the betterment of society, can infrastructure, education, food, housing, all of those things that are human rights, okay? Human rights should not ever be for sale, okay? Cost of living, the worst term I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, I was born, I live here, and you tell me it's going to cost me money to do the things that I need to survive? Come on. Okay, sorry, I'm getting fired up, and I wanted to keep this like 15 minutes, but I'm going to shorten it up here. I'm going to go over these 5 quotes that I thought were hilarious, talk a little bit about them, then I'll sign off. Okay, so direct quote from Trump. Viktor Orban said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. Viktor Orban is an autocrat. This is Trump sucking up to autocrats again. Trump wants to be an autocrat. He said he would be a dictator day one because he's going to drill. But again, we all know. We know what's on the surface. We know who this man is since 2016, okay? Since he came down that fucking escalator. We know that Trump is going to be a dictator. And we know that he's only running to keep himself out of jail, okay? So again, kissing the ring of autocrats, just like with Putin, just like with Kim Jong-un, this man is not fit to be president. Next quote. I probably took a bullet to the head for things they say about me. He's saying, whatever we say about Trump that he claims isn't true, but, it is, that he's a terrible person, or the things that comes out of his own mouth where he's admitted to the various crimes that he's been found guilty of, or, simply grab him by the pussy. Like, you've told us who you are, dude. Like, if you think the assassination attempt, that's what he's referring to here, and again, I'm not going to get into whether it's a conspiracy or not, but if you think that it was some Antifa or some left-wing activist person who tried to take a shot at you because of the things that we say about you, dude, you're a bloviating fool. The things that come out of your own mouth are enough to incite violence against you, okay? You have literally incited political violence on several different occasions. Obviously, most specifically January 6th. So, like, the man who calls for political violence all the time is surprised when political violence is brought against him. It's just, you just can't make this shit up. In reference to January 6th, his next quote, I had nothing to do with that, other than they asked me to make a speech. We've all seen the footage. I don't even need to get into that more. It's bullshit. You had nothing to do with that. At the very least, you could have stopped it instead of sitting in the Oval Office and watching it, drinking your fucking Diet Cokes, reveling in the fact that cops were getting their fucking asses beat, by the thin blue line crowd. Make it make sense, right? Okay, the one that is causing the most immediate damage lately to an entire group of people, 20,000 some Haitians in Ohio, they're eating the dogs. Okay, there's no evidence of this at all. J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, has mentioned this. He's from Ohio too, so he's saying this about his own constituents, making up lies. Okay, that has resulted this past week in bomb threats to 2 different schools where some of these Haitian immigrants' children go. Okay? This is the danger of lies. True lies and misinformation. This is the result of what can happen. Okay? Kids can be in danger from fucking bomb threats because of a stupid lie like this. This is not something I want to perpetuate. Like the day after the debate, like I put up the South Park thing, like they're eating our dogs, like they took our jobs, you know what I mean? But now, like, I'm not going to post any more of that stuff because I don't even want to continue it because it is causing real damage in that community. I believe it was Van Jones, again, just another CNN talking head, whatever, with their corporate media agenda. But he did have a good point. He was like, there's 300,000 Haitians in Florida, and Trump is starting to wane in Florida. I don't think those people are going to vote for him. And there are 300,000 Haitian Americans. They can vote, okay? So don't be sitting there thinking like, oh, these immigrants are going to vote. There's very few instances. It's anecdote at best that illegal immigrants have voted, okay? So I'm sorry, illegal immigrants can't vote in this country. I hope you know that, okay? They can't. They can't vote, despite what you think, okay? They can't do it. And trust me, they don't want to draw attention to themselves by trying to do it. It's the same reason why this migrant crime is also bullshit. Native Americans, white Americans commit more crimes than immigrants do. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. They're here to work hard and have a better life. They're fleeing political persecution, okay? Which is what a lot of people claim they're going to do if Trump loses. So, I mean, how do you expect to be received in another country? Okay, if you're not going to allow people to come here to flee their political persecution and you want to flee what you consider to be political persecution, you think you're going to be welcomed? You think a bunch of MAGA red hat lunatic Trump supporters are going to be welcome in like Europe and stuff like that? Or wherever they claim to go, Scandinavia, maybe Russia. You might think you're going to be welcome there. There's actually a funny anecdote about a family that decided to move over there and, oh man, they hate it. Things aren't going well for them. Just Google it. Worth a Google. Okay, last one. Another instance of cognitive decline from Trump, which again, same hypocritical thing. Oh, Biden's got cognitive decline. Yes, clearly, obviously, the man can't speak well. But Trump saying, remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't even know what that means. But it's another instance of Trump not necessarily even knowing who he's running against. I mean, the dude is not all there. She said a few things, mainly starting with the size of his rally crowds, and it just set him off. Unhinged insanity. Just the same, like, I know it, they know it, you know it, everybody knows it now. Nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about, okay? When you say that more people had more money when you were in power, I mean, yes, I have investments in the stock market. I probably did better when Trump was in there than when Biden was in there, but I don't give a shit about that. And when I don't care about money. I care about our society and our community thriving more than that. So just because I made more money in the stock market while Trump was president doesn't mean that I'm going to sacrifice my morality and vote for the man again because I want to make more money. I mean, fuck all that, okay? I want a society that thrives, that is educated, that is communal, and unifying. Something that can unify our country. When he says that people made more money and while he was in power, that's the investment class. That's the ruling class. That's not you and I. That's not the middle class. Okay, we don't have the hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars to invest in the stock market where we can really see like significant gains during a Trump period. Like I maybe made a few $1,000s more while Trump was in there than Biden and Harris. And honestly, my portfolio is still doing pretty decent under Biden too. Okay. At this point, I don't know. I don't want to say I've given up, but I don't know how to get through to people anymore. Like I said, most people have made up their minds about who they're going to vote for, right? But the few people that are on the fence, I think, are waiting to see who is going to convince them that there's going to be more money in their pockets, more food on their table for their kids, some financial superiority, whatever you call it, more financial comfort. They're trying to figure out who's going to be that person for them. So that's why I think if Harris wants to beat Trump, and at that point, at least we can focus on the here and now, getting rid of Trump, making sure that he is not going to be president again, and then really hammering the Harris-Walz administration. I mean, protesting every single day until they stop funding Gaza, until they put more money in the middle class pockets and stuff like that, till they have progressive agendas, till they codify Roe v. Wade. You know what I mean? They get Congress voting the way it needs to be, till they make serious changes to our institutions, especially when it comes to Citizens United, corporate lobbying, ranked choice voting moving forward, term limits, like all of those things. That's when we hammer them, but we have to get them in office first so we don't have Trump in there. And I understand you don't want to vote for him. I know it makes you feel fucking gross. It makes me feel gross, right? I don't want to vote for just another career politician, even though Harris came from the middle class background, and I respect that. But again, she's in league with all these other politicians, Democrats, Republicans, that are beholden to corporations, and that includes Raytheon, that includes Lockheed, that includes the military-industrial complex. People are making more money while people die in Gaza. We are funding it. It sickens me. But you can't tell me, look me in the eyes right now and tell me that Trump is going to make anything better based on what we've seen from his 4 years, based on how he cozies up to autocrats. You can't tell me that he's going to make anything better. We are in the here and now. We're in political duality. We have two people to vote for. It's going to be Trump or Harris, and you have to ask yourself, do you really want that man as president again? Think of it in terms of, if we get Harris in there, you have 4 years to hammer the hell out of Harris and Walz's administration and make sure they do what we are holding them to do. What we are going to hold them accountable for. Okay? More money in the middle class pockets. Less corporate lobbying. Getting rid of Citizens United. Codifying Roe v. Wade. And stopping the flow of weapons to the IDF who are murdering people in Gaza. That's what we want. And if we want to stop them from doing that, we have to get them in office first, as absolutely bonkers and backwards as this sounds. You get them in office first, and then you don't lay off the protesting, the calling your senators, the calling your Congress people. Okay? You hold them accountable. That's what we're going to do. Because if there's one person who clearly will not be held accountable either by laws or rulings set forth by SCOTUS or by his own standards, it's Donald fucking Trump. We cannot allow that man to be president again. That's all I got to say, guys. I went about 15 minutes too long. Hopefully Sean's going to have a couple of these coming up soon, at least one. And we are hoping to be back in October, November, and December. Hopefully one full cast each month before we close out the year. To our few listeners, I'm sorry we haven't been around that much. I'm not going to give you the same old tired excuses. You heard it from me enough. Either way, this was a quick slay of the Slayers of Boredom podcast. Thanks for sticking around.
Slayers of Boredom Podcast.
Peace.